Welcome to Drummer Mamas. I'm Gemma Hill and I'm joined by my co-host Kira Chinia. Some stats about our guest today that may even be out of date by now. He's played on 89 top 20 albums, 53 number ones. He's produced Debbie Harry and he's played with the likes of Stevie Nicks, Tina Turner and Rod Stewart. Geoff Dugmore talks with us today about playing for the song, bringing a great feeling to a session, and his surprising pastime when he's not busy with music. So I was going to start off by saying, Geoff Dugmore, you have had, and these stats could be out of date by now, 89 top 20 albums and 53 number ones that you've played on. You have produced
something like that.
Debbie Harry. You've played with people like Stevie Nicks, Tina Turner, Joan Armatrading, Rod Stewart, Johnny Halliday. How did 10-year-old Geoff kind of think that anything like that would ever happen?
If I had even thought when I was a kid that something like that could happen, I would have just bitten my hand off. Really, I used to sit in school and draw little pictures of stage sets and drums and amplifiers and everything, and just dream about it all day. Go home at night, play albums and look at the covers and just think, wow, it must be amazing to be able to do that. And I remember going to concerts when I was like probably 14 or 15 at the Glasgow Apollo. And I used to get such a thrill from walking in and seeing the standby light on an amplifier on the stage. I was just kind of like, God, it's just so much adrenaline. And I'm just going to watch, But I don't know. It's just, I would never have imagined that it would have ended up where it was. I mean, I got lucky, and that's it. Nothing really I can say. Nothing in my life has ever been planned. It's always just fallen and happened, and that's kind of how it's gone.
I read a really lovely story about Ringo Starr and some tea towels. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. My sister had, I think it was the Let It Be album. And I saw on Ringo's drums, there was all these tea towels on the toms and everything. This was even before I had a drum set. I was just dreaming about having a drum set. But I saved my pocket money and went out and bought these set of tea towels in readiness for the day that I would have a drum set so that I could be exactly like Ringo. How obsessive is that? I mean...
I love it. That's like the best way of manifesting something, isn't it? I mean, you were fully prepared.
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, the way I got a drum set in the end was my parents wouldn't let me have one. They thought it was too noisy and usual kind of thing. But I had an electric guitar, and I had a friend at school who had a drum set who wanted an electric guitar. So we swapped, and that was it. And it was an old Premier drum set with calfskin heads on it.
Wow.
And I remember breaking one of the heads and being heartbroken and thinking, I haven't got a clue how I'm going to fix this, But I used to go on a Saturday to a drum store in Glasgow called Bradley's Music. It was down in a little basement in the centre of town. And there was a guy there called Bobby Burns, who was the kind of second in command. And he used to let me, hang around the shop all day, and I would sort of clean the drum or just look at them and sort of salivate over them. And so he in many ways was, I mean, he was really encouraging without actually doing anything, but just the fact that he was kind of happy for this young kid to be hanging out and sort of listening to all the other drummers that were coming in at the time and stuff. And he was great. He was really great, really kind. And later I went back to see him after things started to go forward, and he was kind of, oh, I always knew you would do something in music. It was great that you did it, and blah blah blah. So he was really cool.
Oh, and so I'm interested, how long between getting the tea towels to you actually getting a drum kit? What was the time?
I figured probably the swap thing was probably going on in the back of my head. So I was about 12 or 13 years of age. And before that, I had two other friends and up in Scotland, and we went and recorded in this little 4-track recording studio. We went and recorded 4 songs, and I was the lead singer and the guitar player. And then, we sent them off to record labels, and we were, little letters like, we've got a Premier drum set and a Marshall 4x12 and all this kind of stuff, thinking, oh, they're bound to sign us because it's going to be great. And you get all these rejection letters back, and you can't, at 12 years of age, you're kind of like heartbroken, you're kind of thinking, oh my God, But I guess in some ways it was just, it was all that I ever wanted to do. So, somebody's later on down the line said to me once, I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, success is the capability to withstand failure. And I've always thought that's a really good way of looking at it, because constantly you've got to, you're going to get knockbacks, or you're going to get put down or something. And so you've got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go again. And I suppose that's been a good way to approach it in many ways.
I love that. I'm stealing that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I heard that you haven't ever had any like formal drum kit lessons. One, I'm dumbfounded. Like, that's amazing. I've spent so much money. Have you ever had any like injuries or anything?
No, I've been very fortunate. Oh, tell a lie. I did once have an injury on my I had a hi-hat technique. I don't know if you would call it a technique. It's just something I did. When I was pedaling it, I would swing my leg, back and forward. And I remember playing, I think I was playing with this Danish band called Psyched Up Janis. Strange name, but they were good, really cool guys. And we were making a record, I think, down in Brighton or something like that. And the kneecap fell off, basically. Your kneecap's on a kind of rail track like this, and it just flipped off. So I ended up being in I think it was a rugby league team physiotherapist on a Sunday morning or something. And he sort of strapped it back on and pulled it all across. And then for about 6 weeks, I was playing with one leg straight out, the hi-hat leg straight out, and sort of playing the hi-hat in one way, and that's the only way you could play it, kind of thing. But that's the only injury I've ever had. Touch wood. I've been really fortunate with that. It's just one of these things. I do a lot of stretching and stuff like that all the time, which maybe that helps. I don't know. Take a lot of vitamins as well.
I'm writing all of this down, so this is good. So in terms of learning, it was just, was it purely like, you sound like you were just immediately like musical as a kid anyway, but was it just like listening, copying, and that was your approach?
That was my approach completely. I mean, I'd come home from school. I had a drum set in my bedroom, 2 speakers, one either side. And then I just used to play along to all my favorite songs. And if there was something I didn't know how to do, this is the days before YouTube, and nowadays you can find out everything about absolutely everything. And if there was something I couldn't do, I would find my way to do it. And in doing so, almost finding a little bit of originality possibly in the way that you were doing it. Or it might not have been exactly what it was, but it was an interpretation of it. So in a way, there was a lot of kind of happy accidents happening, if you like. And I think, I mean, it's what worries me nowadays a little is I think people listen with their eyes rather than listening with their ears. So, what I would, from my sort of generation's perspective, the Stuart Copelands, the John Bonhams, et cetera, all those kind of guys, amazing drummers, but they were all very original. And I don't know if I hear nowadays so much completely original playing. There's 1 or 2 people I can think of, but I just like that aspect of learning without knowing, if that makes any sense. You don't realize what it is you're doing. You're just on this constant voyage of discovery, and you come across things you think, oh, that sounds great. I like that. I'm going to use that, or some kind of like, if you see a lot of time you had backward cymbal sounds. Well, how do I emulate that in a live situation without knowing or seeing how somebody had, how had all been done? So yeah, a lot of happy accidents happened, and a lot of frustration, and a lot of, oh, bugger this, But it was a continuing great journey, shall we say.
I love it. Jem, I'm just going to ask one more. So what about reading music and notation and stuff? Where are you at with all of that? And by the way, I really love your approach, because it just sounds so free and pure, and you're just responding to the music.
That's completely it. That is completely it. It's just what does your soul say? What does your heart say when you hear a song and you interpret it in the way that you think is always, I know it's a cliche to say nowadays, but serving the song. And that's always been what it's about for me. I'm not I'm not a big chops guy by any manner of means. Any of the other drummers around town will tell you that. They all know what I do. But what I do is I feel the emotion of a song, the intensity, whether it be up tempo or the sensitivity, if it's a a ballad, for example. It's just really honing in and tuning into that. And a lot of the time when I'm playing something, I'll be thinking of something that may have happened in my life that I can relate to what the singer is singing about, and that really helps me to sort of dive right into the the depths, to pull that emotion out of through your playing. For me, it's really important. Sorry, yes. I could get a little bit emotional on that one.
No, I love it, and I think people need to hear it, because often, as I don't know, as drummers maybe, or just people, we can just easily get in our head and go into, I'm going to analyze myself, rather than be present and listen to the song. So what you're saying is really helpful, because that's what you can do if you're in that moment, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I've finished songs and have been in floods of tears, just because it's the journey that I've been on in the last 3.5 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is just really, it's gone straight in there, and it's, for me, it's really important. It's a difference, but it's a different thing being in a band than being, if you like, the hired hand, the session guy. And because I started in a band, I know what that mentality is, that kind of us against the world kind of mentality. And without realizing it, when I inadvertently got involved in playing with other people, you take a lot of that unconsciously. You take a lot of that with you into the next phase of your career, And as I say, I've never really analyzed any parts of anything too much. It's just, I just go with gut feeling, with try to be honest all the time with what you're doing.
I would like to ask you about Japan, which is a place that you spend a lot of time touring in. Firstly, can you please tell us how that came up? Is there an artist, or was there a particular gig that led you to that?
Well, what happened was there was the singer you're talking about, this guy called Ikichi Yazawa, who came to London probably in the late 80s, early 90s. And as a lot of Japanese artists did at that time, they would come over here, a bunch of us would go and make a record with them, and that would be it. So, but he came quite often here, and time after, every couple of years, we'd make another album with him. And he would always say, oh, I'm really big in Japan. And, of course, at that time, it was kind of like, yeah, everyone's big in Japan. Yeah, so what, kind of thing. In that kind of youthful naivety. And the first time he asked me to go and play with him live was 1998. And prior to that, he had been playing live with the Doobie Brothers band and Willie Weeks on bass. So it was a really top-notch band. So we went over there and did this tour. And of course, you you don't really know what to expect, but you get to the first gig and suddenly you go, holy fucking shit, this guy really is big, And so that relationship kind of just started, and then it just kind of carried on and carried on. So it's probably been about where we are now, maybe 27, 28, 30 years that I've been playing with him and recording with him. And you develop, it's like everything else, you end up developing a relationship with the artist. Although I think for me personally, I think it's very important. There's a certain line you never cross, because artists being how they are, I think it's folly to think you'll never be anything else but their first choice. It's the artist's prerogative. Maybe they want to change things up, have something fresh, and so you can end up that gig's gone and you move on to the next kind of thing. And I think it's important for the younger generation to understand that these things happen and it's nothing personal. It's just, you aren't the artist, and don't think that you're the artist, because you're not. You're there to support the artist, and that's your job, But, with some artists, it ends up that you have a long working relationship with them, and some you don't. But I think it's always nice to have, I think it's nice, and I think it sort of says something about whoever is in that situation, who's a long-lasting relationship with an artist, that the artist really trusts them and respects them. And so I mean, it's really nice. And of course, I love the Japanese culture, or have grown to love the Japanese culture and the food and everything else. And a lot of the band are from America. I think I'm the only Brit now that's in the band. So it's a lovely thing to be able to do, I must say. Really fortunate.
Have you got any tips for, firstly, touring with a big time difference, jet lag, culture shock, things like that?
I think the best advice is leave as little time between arriving and starting to work. That would be my advice. If you arrive and you have like a day or 2 days before you do anything, then it's torture, because it's so easy just to fall asleep at the wrong times. I prefer to arrive, have that day. So maybe you arrive at, say, 10 or 11 or 5 o'clock in the evening or something, go straight to work the next day. It's the best way to cut straight through the jet lag, because you've got to do something. You've got to stay awake. You've got to, carry on, and you've got to concentrate on what it is you're doing. So that would always be my personal advice on that.
You have always seemed to me in the 20 years now that we've discovered that was how long ago we met, but you've always seemed very, very zen. Is that something that has always been a part of your nature, or do you think that has come from working in a culture like that in Japan?
Do I seem zen? I have no idea.
You always do. And I remember you talked in the workshop that I met you at, you talked about like creating a space when you were recording, making a peaceful space and allowing for like the artist, for everything that they brought with them. And it just seemed very like, not that the music, not that the drumming was like at the forefront, it was more about what you were bringing as a calm person.
I get that completely. And I think that's a lot of that is probably through a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years, and witnessing the way they work, and taking what elements of these, all the people worked for me, what sort of put me in a good space to play. There was, I don't know if you probably do, a guy called Youth, who produced He was the bass player in Killing Joke, and produced many, many big records. But I had a spell working with Killing Joke. I did a couple of albums and 2 or 3 tours, and he was the consummate vibe guy. He was amazing at just creating these. You just felt great when you walked in, and then people like Trevor Horn and Rupert Hine. Sadly, he died a couple of years ago now, but just all the different people that you work with over the years, and you kind of take bits and hear. Again, not really consciously. You're not thinking, "Oh, I'm going to take that." It's sort of whatever the positive side of things. It sort of manifests itself inside you, and you just kind of unconsciously start adopting some of these things as you're going along. It's funny you should say. I've never thought of myself as being Zen in any way, shape, or form, but I feel very flattered, and I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I always think of you as this very calm, well-rounded, positive person. So I mean, that's why you've been so popular with session stuff, I guess.
I guess so. I mean, it's for me. It's be on time, do your absolute best, and that's it. It's none of it is rocket science. I don't think it's just basic humanity towards other people.
How did you deal with the language difference? Can you speak Japanese now, or if not, how do you get by?
I have the most wonderful drum tech there called Suchi-san, who I've been working with the entire time I've been there, going there. He speaks really good English. Around the world nowadays, just about everybody speaks English. So sometimes the hardest thing, actually, because I got invited to go to China to work with a Chinese artist. And I was very skeptical about it at the time. I was thinking, oh, do I really want to do this? But I thought, okay, well, here's a great opportunity to experience, again, something which is completely new. I'd never been there. I did go with some fear and trepidation, I must say, at the beginning. But as it went on, I really began to enjoy it. But the hardest thing there was a major language barrier. That was a really tough one. But it was things like trying to explain swing. There was one day we were rehearsing one song, and I was sort of trying, but if you kind of make it feel a bit sexier and do this or that. And it's funny because certain things are just not in the DNA of certain cultures. But if you can sort of try to explain it in a way that, I'm very movement orientated when I'm trying to explain something to somebody, especially when it comes to music. And eventually, the penny began to drop with them. I was trying to say, rather than just stand there and do this, what if you, go with the swing of it? And they were kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, good idea. I like this, So then you feel, okay, I'm actually making some communication here. I'm maybe making a difference. But I mean, generally speaking, most people can speak English, so it's not really too much of an issue, thankfully.
Sorry, me. Okay, talking a bit about family then. Do you mind telling us what your family looks like?
Yes. My wife was in the music business, which is how we met. She had the first independent record producer management company. And then she went on to build a recording studio complex in town called Metropolis. I don't know if you've been there. So I met her after my first or second band split up. And I was kind of like, oh, God, I don't know what I'm going to do, And I met the engineer, no, sorry, not the engineer, the assistant who had been mixing the last album of my band, which was called the Europeans. Kind of topical these days, really. And he said, oh, you should go and see Karen Clayton. And so I did. And she said, well, if I hear something, I'll let you know. And I think it was about maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I get this call. He said, oh, do you want to do this gig with a band called Black Britain, which was a reggae band? And I was thinking, well, yeah, of course. It's a gig, it's playing music. What more could I ask for? So suddenly I find myself in this situation where I'm playing with these guys from, I think they all came from sort of Brixton or around that area. And I was thinking, but I'm a little white boy from Glasgow. How does this equate, But it was great. They were so cool. They were signed to Virgin Records. They were so nice. And then through that, we were recording, and a guy called Larry Blackman was producing them from Cameo. So I got to meet him, and then my relationship with Karen just developed, and we were really great friends, for 5 or 6 years, and we even went on holiday together platonically, and then we were out one night, and I was trying to hook her up with this guy, and I was trying to pick up this girl, and she was saying, "Oh no, let's go somewhere else. Let's go somewhere else." So we went somewhere else anyway, and then we ended up back at my flat, which wasn't unusual, just watching a movie and stuff. And I said, "Oh, what's up today? Something's going." And then we sort of looked at each other, and that was it. And then 1 year later to the day, we got married in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And we have 2 boys, both grown up now. One is in the fashion industry, and the other one is in the logistics industry. And that's how it was. That's how it all came about.
How did you manage having a young family and touring, working all over the place?
It was very difficult, especially with our first child, because my wife was still working then. And 2 weeks after she had Louis, our first child, I've got to tell you a story about this, because when he was always going, if it was a boy, it was always going to be Louis. We had decided that a long time ago. But when I went off to register the birth, being a drummer, I'm thinking Louis Belson, yeah, Louie. And my wife is thinking Louis, Louis. And I come back with the birth certificate proudly going, and she says, "What the fuck have you done? You spelled his name wrong." But he stayed at Louie, and that's how it was. Oh dear, crazy. Sorry, back to the question. Sorry. It's very, very difficult, because for my wife, she was working plus having a newborn, and I was there some of the time. I was gone. I was there. I was gone, and it's a really difficult thing to manage. Really hard to manage, because we're both kind of forging careers, as it were, and there's no question it was far harder for me than it was for her. Sorry, than it was for me. No question about that. Even although we had a daytime nanny at the time, come 6 o'clock, she was gone, but the baby was still running riot, at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning. And then my wife was trying to be back into the office at 10 o'clock the next day, absolutely exhausted, knackered by the whole, everything. And it takes its toll, it definitely takes its toll. And I'm amazed at you girls, how you manage to multitask in that way, having children and having your careers. And I mean, hats off. I don't know how you do it. I really don't.
Well, it's definitely teamwork, isn't it? It always takes a village,
Absolutely.
like everyone says. If you had a chance to do things differently, would you do it differently as a new dad, or would you keep it all just the same as you did? I mean, bearing in
Yeah.
mind, like, things are different now because with technology, you can be in touch a lot more. At that time, that wasn't possible,
Yeah,
right?
there's elements I would definitely change. I would have tried to be back for more birthdays and school plays and such like. I always remember there was one Christmas I was away. I was in New York, I think, and called home on Christmas Day. And I think before my second son was born, but I remember Louis saying, "Oh, we're not doing Christmas till you come home, Dad," which absolutely broke my heart, you know. And then you've got that whole guilt thing on your back. But interesting. I mean, I've since the boys have grown up, I've spoken to them at length about, there was the reason why I wasn't there was because, putting food on the table, so to speak. And they were kind of like, no, Dad, we get it. You had to do what you had to do, and we get it completely. We really appreciate what you did for us, kind of thing. So I think it's important to be honest and truthful with children from an early age. Don't try to kind of hide anything from them. Just tell them how it is, because I think the worst thing to do is if you hide something from kids, then they suspect something. They're very astute in the way they pick things up. They can feel what's going on, and if they find out later in life something that they wish they had known earlier in life, I think then they would they'd be a bit kind of pissed off with you, which is never a good vibe for anybody.
Have they seen you play a gig ever, or I'm going rogue with the questions, Gemma. Sorry.
No, yes, they have. They have. Yeah, yeah, nowadays, they're not particularly interested. They've got their own lives,
Yeah.
Um, but I was doing recording some tracks with the band called Busted many years ago, and I took them down to the sessions, and it's the one and only time I've taken them down to the sessions, and they were kind of like bemused by the whole thing. I think, well, mind you, Louis would probably have been about 12, and Finn would have been about 6 in that case. But the great thing is rock and roll and children really do go hand in hand. It's so cool the way that a lot of, if you when they were young, I would take them to shows and stuff, and half the time, people would bring Skeletrics and train sets, and the catering would fly them with ice cream or whatever it is what they wanted, and it was kind of like, do you want to come and why do I want to come and watch you play? I'm having fun here with the others, so it can be a great combination, and it's lovely having children around on the road. It's very grounding and very kind of keeps everything cool.
I love that so much. You've been doing this a long time. Do you see yourself always being on tour? Like, what do you see for yourself in the later days?
I'm in the later days. um, I mean, my thing has always been, if I can tour 6 months of the year and record 6 months of the year, that's the perfect scenario. Of course, there's going to come a point where physically, it I can't do that any longer. Thankfully, touch wood, I'm still in good shape, so that's not an issue. Um, I would like to. I would certainly like to produce a bit more than I have done up to late. I really would. I thoroughly enjoy that process, taking something from a seed until you've got the finished blossom there. I find that really, really, really exciting doing that process. And other than that, I'm just really happy where I am. I'm happy. I'm thankful that I'm still working in this ever, I wouldn't say shrinking, but it's hard out there for everybody. Make no mistake about it. Everybody's doing so much from home now, which in some respects I think is great. But I never really signed up for this industry to sit on my own and send somebody some stems. I still love that interaction For me, that's really important. And it's also a case of, if somebody asks me to do something, I'd rather go and spend a little bit of money in a studio, because at least the recording studio can stay alive. I would hate that whole kind of recording studio. So many have closed, but it would be a shame to see more and more closed, because young people need to have that experience of actually working in that environment, rather than just always working on their own at home. Although I make no mistake, that serves an incredible purpose. There's no doubt about it. But I just come from that generation prior to that.
No, I agree with you. I think there's something really special about being in a room with people you're creating with, and you can respond in
Completely.
real time. So, you know,
I mean, I did a record, when was that, about a year or so ago, for this band called Pure Reason Revolution. It's a kind of prog rock band. And one of the guys was in Berlin, one of the guys was in Portland, Oregon, and I was in London. But we used a thing called audio movers, which is when you can hear and react in real time. So the mix that I have in the studio in London, they're hearing and seeing exactly the same mix online, in their screen. So they can be adjusting things as they might want to hear it in real time. So that, I mean, it's nothing can replace everybody being in the same room, but technology is getting a little bit closer to emulating that, which is a good thing for me.
that's very cool. It's really, really cool. I want to know, what's the best gig you've ever been to and why?
What's the best? Actually, completely not what I was expecting, because I'm not a big fan, but my wife is. Paul Simon. I went to see Paul Simon at Hyde Park rather reluctantly. I had a friend who was playing in his band, who invited me, and I was kind of like, oh, all right, okay. Never really been much of a Paul Simon fan. And I came away from that gig absolutely blown away. The arrangements, the playing, the sound, everything was just wow. Absolutely wow. Incredible. So I never in my life thought I would say that, but that is probably the best gig I have ever seen.
I'm going to go on from there. This might be harder. Can you tell us your favorite artist, song, or album that you've worked on, and why?
I could probably tell you the favorite song, which is a song called Winter Blue by a girl called Heather Nova, Bermudan singer, which we recorded at Townhouse 2, which is where they recorded In the Air Tonight, the drums for In the Air Tonight. Everybody knows. And it was about 5 or 6 in the evening. There was myself. There was, I think it was Guy Fletcher from Dire Straits for some keyboards. There was a Danish guy. I forget what his name was. Anyway, it was one of these moments where, in some way, shape, or form, everybody was completely in sync with each other. And just, it was kind of like you were just sort of so inside this song and this moment. And when we finished cutting the track, everybody was just completely silent. The control room was silent. Everybody in the studio was silent. And it was just one of these moments you go, wow, I don't know how many times in my life this will happen, but wow, something magical happened right there and then. And so that's probably my favorite song that I've ever recorded for that reason. It was just one of those moments, complete magic.
Was there anything in particular about that song that kind of brought that moment on? Or was it just the timing, you'd been together, or?
I don't know. I mean, it could have been, I mean, obviously a lot of it is always going to do with the singer's voice and the way that they're portraying the song. But it just was, I don't know, everything. It was kind of like you were playing, but you were listening to a record, if that makes any sense. it's kind of like you weren't playing and you were just listening to this lovely song coming over you, but you were playing it in real time. I can't think of another way to describe it other than that, to be honest with you.
That is like going back to effortless mastery, which I feel like I always talk about this book, but that's the aim, isn't it? When you're playing,
Yeah.
that you're above playing, you're just like,
it's kind of like
almost
you're
meditating.
exactly. That's a brilliant way of putting it. You're kind of looking down upon yourself doing this thing, but you're not aware you're doing it, but you are doing it. It's a bit cosmic. It works for me.
It is. It's the dream state, isn't it? To get
Yeah,
into that
absolutely.
playing.
Absolutely.
I would personally really love to see you playing at the UK Drum Show. Is that something you do? Do you like giving clinics and masterclasses? You seem very busy with your recording and touring, but
Would I like to do? I tell you what, for me, I always feel so sort of intimidated by these things. To me, I kind of think what people are expecting to see is not necessarily something that comes naturally to me. When I say that, I mean, I'm not a whiz, I mean, people like Thomas Lang and all these guys do the most incredible things on a drum set, which I could never dream of doing. And so I always feel, well, what if I'm going to do a masterclass? What is I'm going to say? What is it? What can I bring that is different or new to the equation? And for me, it would have to be something around the way that I go about recording a track or putting the parts together or whatever it is. But in terms of, I mean, there's so many incredible drummers out there that do the most incredible things, and I think most of the time that's what people want to see. But it's not really what I do. So, would they be interested? I doubt it.
No, I'm interested because sometimes, and I'm just speaking from my own thoughts, is sometimes I love all those fast choppy drummers, but it can be intimidating for the person watching and almost like, oh, I'm going to just chuck my sticks in the bin. But what I really want is to connect and to hear someone's story, and I want to hear how they react and respond to music. Even just in this chat, how you've talked about getting into a song is so valuable, and I think would really help a lot of people. So I'm just putting that there.
Putting that out there. Well, absolutely. I mean, if that was the topic and that was what the thing was about, then I'm in my element. I can do that all day and just with a huge smile on my face and explain all these things and talk about, play a whole bunch of songs. How did that happen? How did that happen? Where did it? Fine. I'll spend a week doing that with people. That would be my dream come true, for sure. But thank you. I really appreciate the fact that you would find that fascinating. That's great.
What you were saying earlier about when you were little and you had it all kind of in your head and this excited feeling when you were, going to see a gig or something. And I feel like that is such a huge part. We don't realize it when we're little, but that is such a big part of what we can become. Sorry, I'm about to go a bit woo-woo with it, but it just, now when I look back on those times, and there were all these huge drummers that we would go and see. And then now 20, 30 years later, I think that is nuts that I have ended up meeting all these people, being able to speak with them like we do now. It's such a crazy thing that can happen.
I know. I mean, every time there's a very famous venue in Tokyo called the Budokan, which is, Deep Purple live at everybody's done a live at the Budokan. Anyway, every time I go there, I think in 1963, Ringo Starr walked up these steps onto this stage, and I'm walking up these stairs onto that stage. And every time it gives me such an enormous thrill. And I feel so privileged to be able to do it. It's magical. I mean, I still get so excited every time I go to the studio or I go to do a show or something. It's kind of like the first time all over again. I still get butterflies in my stomach. I get excited. I can't wait to go, you know.
That's lovely. Well, I'm certain that success comes from that feeling, and you always are so grateful. You always mention that, and every time I've spoken to you about your career. So,
Completely, completely.
have you got anything planned or any stuff that you'd like to tell us about that's coming up?
Well, I'll be touring again from September this year through to June 27. And in the meantime, I know I've got a couple of records to do in about a month's time. And other than that, whatever comes along, you know, you never know from one day to the next. As my wife always says, let's book a holiday, because you can rest assured, as soon as we book a holiday, you'll get something that comes up for work.
Yeah, it's always the way.
Isn't it just?
I've just thought of another question while I've got you here. Sorry. What do you do for downtime?
What do I do for downtime? You know what I love doing, and it might sound bizarre, I love gardening. There's something really wonderful about getting in touch with the earth, with nature, and planting something, watching it grow, because it's tangible. You can actually see it and smell it. With music, you kind of let go of this thing that you've created at the end, but you never know you never really see it necessarily. But the great thing about having a garden is that you can watch things physically grow during the course of the year, and then, you know, die down, come back again the next year. There's just something really magical about that. I really love that. And if you had asked me 30 years ago, I would have gone, are you freaking joking? You know, I don't know if it's something that comes with age or what it is, but now I just love it. I really love it. In fact, I'll probably go out there after we finish this. Keep to you guys.
But what do you do when you're on tour? Do you ever get like, oh no, all the work I've put into the garden is going to be gone? Or do you have someone to help you? Like, how do you manage that?
Well, my wife does a lot of it, and we have during the winter time, we have a guy that comes 2 hours for a week and cleans up all the leaves and everything, because there's mountains of them. But other than that, most of the time when I'm on tour and I have days off, I'm off looking at cultural things, or generally I walk around about 10 miles a day on a day off. Stay fit, keep the cardiovascular in good shape.
That's amazing.
I'm interested in like the partnership with the gardening, because I've got to say I'm good at looking after things when I know that it's my duty to do it, but my partner is the one who's got the green fingers, so I'm always terrified when he's not around that, you know, something might die. So are you able to trust each other with the gardening? Do you know that
completely?
If you're not there?
Yeah. No, okay. Completely. Yeah. In fact, my wife's probably taught me more about it than I ever knew, and that would be true for just about everything domestically. I was a lousy cook until she taught me, and now I'm pretty good. I didn't really know much about gardening, but she taught me that. She's the Google for everything in this household.
She sounds lovely.
Without her around, nothing would happen. You know, I was thinking you should interview some of the wives of drummers. That would be a very interesting perspective.
Yeah, we've thought about this as well, as like sort of to get the other side of, you know, of how things are.
Exactly.
We haven't had anyone say yes, though.
Actually, we did ask someone and they said no,
did.
Didn't they?
Yes.
Oh. They're just shy, unlike us drummers.
The truth will come out.
I'll tell you one thing. Over the last couple of years, when I've been introduced to, you know, the artist will introduce the members of the band, and if they ask you to come down to the front, where the singer is, that absolutely terrifies me. It's way out of my domain. It's just, my admiration for singers, I always had a very high admiration, but it went even higher when I got asked to come right out the front and, you know, take a bow kind of thing, you know, because you think you're so exposed out there. It's great for us drummers. We're behind our little, you know, armory, you know, and, but my God, it's terrifying down there. Absolutely terrifying. I don't know how they do it.
big personality thing, isn't it? I think it's
Absolutely.
very much part of
who
we are.
I think
what
there's a lot.
instrument we pick.
Blake, But here's a question: do you think you can, from a person's personality, do you think you can tell what instrument they play from their personality?
I think you can, but then, see, you surprised me a little bit by saying that then you don't like being up front because you play lots of other instruments, right? So
yeah, but I don't play them in a live situation. I'll just play them in the studio. That's the different thing. I'd be terrified to play a guitar. Although, if I wasn't a drummer, I would be a bass player.
Of course, yeah.
I love playing bass. There's just something great about that.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm veering off the subject here.
No, it's great. It's great. I could talk to you for days, weeks, months.
Yes.
Me too.
Thank you.
But we're really, really grateful. Thanks so much for your time. And
absolute pleasure. And thank you so much for inviting me on. It's been so much fun, and I'm a big fan.
Thanks for listening to the Drummer Mamas podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave us a 5-star rating because it makes us more visible to other listeners. And we really do appreciate any comments or reviews. It makes a difference. Thanks again, and see you next time.